Are you ready to discover the power of authenticity in personal and business branding? From embracing your true self to building meaningful connections, Braeden Rhys reveals the secrets to creating a strong brand identity. Tune in to learn how to reflect who you and your business are to attract your ideal clients.
Welcome to Biz Help for You with host Candy Messer. Entrepreneurs like to focus on the big picture, like profitability, success, and a smooth-running organization. But there always seems to be those little things like taxes, employee compensation, laws, regulations, and more. Now you can get the answers you need in one place. Join us today as we break it all down for you. Now, here's your host, Candy Messer.
Hello and welcome to Biz Help for You with Candy Messer. Thank you for joining me today. If you missed my last episode and would like to listen to the show, links can be found on my social media pages as well as multiple favorite podcast platforms. And if you'd like to receive notifications on when my podcasts have been uploaded, please like and subscribe. Now, let me tell you a little bit about my guest today. Braeden Rhys is a multifaceted marketing and public relations professional, recognized as one of Australia's top 100 entrepreneurs, recognized 40 under 40, Australian CEO, and founder of two of the world's leading agencies, Sweet Release Agency and Access Global Company. Braeden's journey to success was not a conventional one. It is a story of self-discovery, resilience, and unyielding authenticity. So Braeden, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Candy. It's good to be here, and I guess a good opportunity for me to share a very different story to what most people would be used to.
Well, that will be interesting to hear what that is then. And before I get into questions that I have for you, I'd love for you just to share a little bit about how you began teaching others about authenticity.
For me, it came down to living my own truth. I had this very early on in my life option to either deny who I was as a person and be what I thought the world wanted me to be, or be what I wanted to be myself. And so that kind of polarizing moment in my life and finding a sense of belonging or a sense of authenticity for myself was a little bit challenging, because at the start I was heavily involved in one of Australia's largest ministerial organisations as a youth minister. And I had a lot of people that were younger and, approaching adolescence, approaching me and saying, I don't fit in here. I'm looking at this Bible and it says Adam and Eve, but, there's no Eve in my life or how I see my life unfolding, or no Adam. And so I had this position of authority, or at least trust, with these younger people about being themselves. And a lot of them were very emotional about it because they didn't know where they fit in. And me personally thought, and my logic earlier on at the point, very much being involved and indoctrinated at that point in time, was to go with the flow. And if God or the people that I was working with at the time was saying that being gay or identifying as an LGBTQI person was wrong, that I actually thought I could, quote unquote, pray the gay away. And so I tried to do that for myself, but at the same time, I was telling these young people, God loves you no matter what, which was something I truly believed, but because the organisation I worked for was saying something completely different to me, it was quite polarising for me to tell people to be happy and be themselves and help them embrace their own identity, while telling myself I'm bad, it's wrong, it's whatever. And so I made the choice in that moment, because it was a very reflective moment for me, because it was like looking in a mirror. I had these children that were questioning their gender and their sexuality, approaching me, and I knew in myself who I was, but I was telling them to be comfortable and be happy. And at the same time, I was denying my own happiness and comfortability with myself. So I decided to walk out of that environment and embrace a different environment, which was completely left of field for me, which was the LGBTQI community, which I do identify with today and quite proudly do so. And throughout that journey, of embracing my own identity and understanding who I was as a person, not what I thought the world wanted me to be, I was able to develop businesses and brands off the back of my own authenticity, but I guess also my origin story of going from something that I thought I had to be to satisfy the world versus who I wanted to be happy and content in myself. So it took a lot of teething problems and a lot of resilience and strength in that moment. But I guess the driving force behind it for me, and I'm quite fortunate, is I have very supportive family who have never questioned me or tried to undermine who I was as a person. It was always very much, as long as our son is happy and safe and healthy, and through that he becomes successful in whatever he does, we're happy for him and we'll love him no matter what. So I got lucky with family that didn't judge me for what I have done in my career, because I've done quite some interesting things. But yeah, my origin story starts very much there in a sense of belonging and identity, and navigating that as a young person myself to coming out the other side of it now much more stronger and wiser than what I ever was back then when I reflect on that.
Mm-hmm. So as business owners now, since, that's who we're talking to, the audience, we want to make sure that we are, being for representing our business for who we are too, right? Instead of, a lot of times I think people look at social media too to see who are the people that have millions of followers or hundreds of thousands of followers, and we are putting out things, content, reels, whatever that might be too, and maybe not seeing a lot of traction yet. So a lot of times people are thinking, I need to be like that person. What would you say to the business owner who's struggling right now to get out there and be seen and thinks they need to replicate somebody else?
I think replicating somebody else is the worst thing you can do. The reason for that is because people can see through the narrative. And on social media, a lot of people will project, they're out at the beach, they're having a cocktail, or, I've just had a salad and I'm living the best life, or whatever it might be. But then on the other side of that is reality. And I think a lot of people, especially startups and entrepreneurs, they rely on what they see online as being truth. And whatever they see online is gospel. That is what it is. That's their life. That's who they are. Forgetting to realize that if that person's got lots of followers and lots of fans and they've got lots of engagement, it could be one of two things. They've either paid for it, because at the end of the day in the marketing world, social proof is everything when it comes to a digital landscape. And so people put their trust and they put their stock and their value in numbers when it comes to followers and engagement. You could have 10 posts and 5,000 followers and, you've got hundreds of likes on your photos, but are those people actually converting, or are they actually engaging with your business or with your services? And so authenticity is really important, because copying someone else's narrative may not actually work for what you want it to do. And the audience you're trying to attract may not actually respond to that content. So it's really important to link your business to who you are and why you are. And even when I work with brands and we go into the element of brand development, knowing who you are as your authentic self, but also applying that to your business is really important, because people connect with people. They don't connect with a physical product or a service. They don't come to you for that. They come to you because they love what you're saying. They love how you communicate. They resonate with you. But if you can't keep up with that narrative that you've copied and pasted from somebody else, eventually you're going to wear yourself down, and then your content will become really loose and ill-fitted to the point where there's going to be cracks in this veneer you've created for yourself, because you've literally copied and pasted someone else's story and tried to do it yourself. And the issues I see with that, with businesses that have done that, is that customers see through it. And so you might start ticking boxes really quickly at the start, but then very quickly you will lose the followers, you will lose the engagement, because people will see through it and go, this is fake. How can I trust this person? Because this was the story they put out last week, and this week it's gone to, a couple of selfies that, they're not crystal clear. The story's changed. And people can see that visually, which is the good thing of social media, is how visual it is. The bad thing of social media is you've got to keep feeding it. And so if you don't maintain your brand and you don't maintain your story, you end up having an issue. So I always think it's always important for a business and for a brand in general to always look at the purpose of why they're doing what they're doing and identify those gaps in businesses or people they want to connect with to communicate that value. So solving those problems for people through your content, that's what it should be. So that way you're getting their attention and you can show that you are passionate about that and connect with them on that level. And then people will follow from there. But yeah, regurgitating content from somebody else, I'd be very cautious of that because it has a very short shelf life.
That's true. Well, and one thing that I had heard before too from someone else is that that person, like you've even said, they might have hundreds of thousands of followers, but how many people are actually buying from them? So even if you have a smaller number of people, but they are engaging with you and they're your right customer. And especially as we're told often we should niche down, right? So that you're talking to a very specific person or a very specific target. So if you're talking to that target, it is going to be a smaller number of people, but more likely they'll be more interested in your content and what you're sharing and all of that too. So I agree with you 100%, as well. And plus, if we're trying to be like someone else, like I said, we're not going to feel like it's the right fit for us too. And people are going to tell, like, if we're creating videos or things like that too, that we're not being, showing our personality. If I'm trying to be like that super flashy, outgoing person, that's not my personality either. Right. And so I'm going to feel uncomfortable with that. And people know if I'm a more quiet, reserved type person, that's how I come across. Right. So I would feel uncomfortable trying to impersonate like someone else's character almost, right?
I don't think there's anything wrong with research. Like I definitely vouch for the fact that if you go online and you see things that you like and you're like, oh, I didn't think of doing it that way, that's a really great way of communicating my why and my purpose and my story. I think keeping a little notebook and writing all these things down, or on your computer, screenshotting the things that you like, and then put all that stuff together. If you print it all out and put it in front of you and do like a sort of mind map or a story brand guideline for yourself and go, okay, well, here's all the bits that fit together to make the puzzle that is my story. And this is how I'm going to communicate that. I think that's a great way of emulating, what you like in other brands if they resonate with your purpose, but definitely not copying verbatim, because people are looking around at other providers, for example, and they see their stuff and then they see your stuff. It's like, oh, this person's copying. People are very oh, that looks familiar. Why have I seen that before? So I do think doing research into competitors is really important. That's my thing is always leading with strategy and following with creative. So if your strategy is to kind of identify your purpose and identify your target market, definitely looking at competitors is wise. But do it through, do it reservedly, do the digging and apply that to your story and then put it online. Don't go, oh yeah, copy, paste, reshare, repost and start spreading it all over. Because the one key thing I find with social media is consistency in color and branding and font is really important, because it maintains visual appeal, but it also shows consistency, and it also shows that you are consistent in your brand, your story, your vision. And people trust that consistency. So, yeah, I think research is great. But, yeah, the copy and paste, definitely not.
Right. Well, and I think when you're talking about like brand fonts and colors and things like that too, one thing that I have heard as well is you should be creating like your website or whatever products you have for marketing, collateral, things like that. It should be targeted at your customer, right? And what they would want to see, which then can make you feel like, well, that's not really me, right? Like if someone should have, yellow and teal maybe, but their favorite colors are red and black, right? Maybe they feel that that doesn't represent them too. So what would you say to someone who's trying to figure out for their brand and their colors and the marketing? They do want it to represent them, but they do want to make sure that it is attractive and what the customer that they're targeting would really see as like
I think
important.
if you're looking at colors and branding, it's hard. It's always hard as a business owner or a solopreneur, which I started off as, and then obviously my brands have grown into a company. But it's always hard at the start when you're so emotionally connected to something to try and break that color scheme or that story that you've gone, I love these colors and this is what I am and this is what I do. But as a marketer, it's always important, like I said, going back to strategy, to understand the psychology behind the colors you're using. And so if you look at psychology of colors and the meanings of colors and how font and the use of those colors and text can affect someone's opinion or can affect someone's emotional response to your business, I think it's easier to distance yourself from your emotional connection to the colors and the text you love versus the text and the colors that will grow your business. There's a big difference between your own personal opinion versus what will actually work. And so if you look at things that way, it's a lot easier to go, well, I love these colors. I like purple. I like gold. They're not going to work for me because I'm in the medical profession. Blue and it's white, because people want, different colors have different meanings. Yellow and purple are usually resolved around the feeling of wealth and happiness and child, and they're very playful colors, but purple is also of royalty. You try and apply those colors psychologically to the medical profession. What story are you really telling here? People identify with medicine to be something that, incorporates elements of pain. There's medication involved. There may be surgery. There's I wouldn't really say that there's a royal treatment for that. That's fun because the process is not fun, but the end result is what you're after. So people go for the medical stuff in terms of clinical and clean and trustworthy and transparency. And those colors psychologically would be the first two I said before, which is just as an example. There's heaps of different colors in the spectrum, but that would be your whites, your blues, which is why when you go to a hospital, the walls aren't yellow, unless you're in a kid's hospital, but, the walls aren't yellow and purple. Very rarely do you walk into a medical environment and see colors that would be the opposite of your emotional response or your physical response to the meaning of color. So picking your colors and picking your font, you should always look at, I guess, the psychological part of it. And I find that that's easier to do when you're trying to remove yourself from I love these colors, I love this text. But if you go back and go, I'm going to take a step back. These are colors I love, but do they work for what I'm trying to achieve? Let's have a look at who we're targeting, and do these colors represent the experience or the emotion I want my customers to have? And that makes it easier in that journey of isolating colors and font. In terms of font and style and size, choosing font's really important when you're going through the branding process, because you've got people using multiple devices. The more fancy the font, it can be harder for an older demographic to identify what you're trying to say because it's harder to read, or on a mobile device, it's too small. So it's important to kind of consider those things as well from a digital perspective. But from a consistency perspective, you're looking for words and shapes and colors that, tell the story, but connect with the emotional side of what you're trying to achieve. So that would be my key bits there, I guess, around text and color and distancing yourself. As much as you want to be authentic in your brand, which is really important to do, you need to also understand the psychology behind what you're doing. So that way, when you do put it together, it works.
Right. Well, I agree. I had heard a story at one point from someone I knew in business too, that I believe that they were actually helping them do their marketing. And the person was saying, but I love pink and purple and the script and all of that. And she's like, but who's your target market? Right. And the target market was not someone who would want to see pink and purple and like scripty fonts. It would need to be more classic and things like that. And so they had encouraged her, to change kind of what she was going to be doing, and it would improve, the number of clients and things that she was attracting. And it did change and it did help. But I think also it helps to get that feedback, maybe find out who some of those potential customers of yours might be that are the ideal customers, and get their feedback, even what do you like or what do you not like? And then that will also help, because I think sometimes, well, especially if we're not creative ourselves and we just have an idea of what we think it should be, right? Which is why it's always good to talk to a professional too. But just having other people give their feedback to you and not being so upset emotionally if somebody is like, oh, I don't think that's like the best. It doesn't represent what you want it to represent, correct?
And they're conversations I have with my clients quite a bit. They'll approach me with a color palette. They're really passionate about these colors. They're like, we're targeting women, and women like pink and purple. It's a very generalized approach to selecting colors and developing a brand. And you are right. Navigating the audience is really important. You need to know, is this what people are going to resonate with? Which is why getting someone to run their eyes over it, which is why a lot of clients come to Access and Sweet Release for different reasons. But when we do work on branding, they come to me to run my eyes over their brand and give them a real cold, hard, no rose-colored glasses, no filter approach to, is this going to work, yes or no? And, I can be quite aggressive with my feedback if they ask for it. It's like, don't ask if you don't want the real answer. Whereas on this, podcast and video cast are being quite reserved with my opinions on things. But it is important to, invite friends and family into the conversation. If you're comfortable with those conversations and you're starting a business, definitely invite friends and family into that conversation. Don't pick the family members that are going to be like, oh, yes, dear, we love what you're doing. It's amazing. We love that color, whatever makes you happy, because that's not going to help your business. But you're going to get friends and family involved. You want the ones that are going to be honest with you. And if you can handle that honesty, great. If you rather outsource the honesty, ask somebody that's a professional that's not related to you, because at least that way you can get the shits with the response and you can hang the phone up and you go, well, I don't like that opinion. Then you can actually sit back and reflect on it without having to go to the next Thanksgiving or family dinner with them and be like, oh, you said this about these colors and this one. So definitely running a professional's eyes over it's always handy, but definitely engaging people or looking at what other businesses are doing is handy, because if you see what they're doing and you understand why they're doing it, you can look at yours and go, oh, maybe I should incorporate a bit of that and tone it down or ramp it up.
Right. Well, and I've heard someone also say you really shouldn't ask your friends or family at all, because most of the time they want to encourage you in your business, right? And so they're going to think you want to hear like, oh yeah, it's great, right? And it may not be. And so, like I said, finding who that target market might be, or like you said, finding a marketing professional who could help them like design and create, and not just the logo or the colors, right? But like the whole scheme of everything that they're going to have to represent them effectively. And I think that's one thing that a lot of times those of us that are not those creative geniuses, right? If we are trying to help someone else, like I could be trying to give them the best advice too and my honest feedback, but that's maybe not my expertise. So I may not know that, like you said, the psychology behind it. Maybe I might say that's a great color, but it's really not ideal for them, right? And so having the professional who can then create the whole brand and not just that simple logo, that can help them represent themselves effectively in the market, I think is important.
It's interesting because we get a lot of clients, and I've worked with a lot of businesses since I started my business back in 2000 and end of 2016, 17, around about then, like fully. There's been 5,000 businesses that have approached me through the brands I've created worldwide. And quite often we have clients that come to us with a logo. And I'm like, how did you get there? And they're like, oh, I went on Fiverr, and I have no issue with Fiverr because they're really quick to get creative done and it's cheap, it's effective. But paying for someone to do a logo without understanding the purpose of how they got there, and if you're just going to fork out $5, $10 for someone to do a logo without the strategy, most of the time what I see happen is that logo changes again and again and again and again. And over a very short period of time, it's not like it gradually changes. It changes sporadically, like week on week. I've seen businesses start with something and then they launch their website and they do their business cards. And then a week or two later, they've got new cards, new logo, new branding. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how did you come up with the first one? And why did we switch to this one? And most of the time it comes down to they didn't have a strategy. They didn't know what they were doing with it, or it wasn't working, or they had feedback come at them later, which I'm kind of lucky because I've got family that are very blunt with their opinions on this. They want me to be happy and successful, but they also want to be honest because they're like, we're not going to watch you fall over. So we want to help you get there, but they'll tell me if it's good or not. So it's interesting that people don't have that strategy or that conversation before they launch something, and then something goes live, and then they've had all this mixed feedback, but mostly negative feedback about their brand or their story or how they've written their content, and they keep trying to work it out without going back to the plan at the start because they never had one. And it's that old adage of failing to plan is planning to fail. And I see businesses do that a lot, especially in that startup phase. So, yeah, I'm just saying it's sad to see businesses do that, but it does happen. They eventually, reach the pointy end and go, oh, light bulb moment. But for some people, it doesn't happen that quickly.
Right. Well, what I was going to say too, when you were talking, it made me think that if they keep changing so quickly, you're going to confuse the audience that you have.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, people will rebrand periodically. So when do you know that you should be rebranding something and you're not going to confuse your audience versus I just don't like what I have right now and I just want to change it and, kind of go from there? Like, what do you say about that?
When a business does a rebrand, it's for a couple of reasons. I tend to find that a rebrand happens because either people have stepped in that they've taken over. So a company might take over a business because they've bought it out, someone sold it to them, and they're like, well, this doesn't resonate with me and our values, but we love the product or the service, but we want to tell it our way. So sometimes the brand changes for that reason. Other times it could be because the business is pivoting. So if you're pivoting industries or you're expanding your market, and originally your color scheme was selected for, hypothetically, let's say it was a younger market, say it was a school, and the school was only ever single-gendered and primary. And then all of a sudden you're now doing co-education and it's secondary and primary. So you've got elementary all the way through till university level. When you start doing that, it's obviously attracting a different market. So when we see businesses evolve and grow, or introduce new products or services that may not necessarily be with the original market, but now with the new market, that's when I see brands go through that phase of, should we change? Or if the market has changed their mindset, which does happen, people do change their opinions and feelings about things. And it's usually a 7 to 10 year timeline that this can happen in some industries, where people's response to colours change, their emotional response to a service or a product changes, and you see businesses trying to keep up with those changes as well. So they would be the main moments that a business would rebrand. Most of the time it's because someone bought something over and they didn't like what they bought, but they liked the inside of what they bought and they want to tell their story and project it outside. But the other side of it is definitely target market changes. That does happen. And it does annoy a lot of businesses when that happens, that people, people are people and we don't just stick to the narrative and we do change and evolve over time. But generally they're the times that brands would evolve themselves. I only just did a rebrand of our business, and that's because we've changed. Again, when my rebranding, it wasn't about changing the styling or changing the color, it was about changing the feel of the brand. So to look more large, look bigger, which companies gotten bigger, which is crazy, but a good thing. But that evolution of the brand had to become something that would be more timeless, because when I originally put the brand together, I knew that it would have a shelf life and had more, for example, sharp edges in how the logo design was created for Access. And noticing the change and the shift of how businesses that have had long-term success have a lot more of a cursive feel. They're more circular in their styling. And I find when you take the sharp edges off something and have more of a cursive edge to anything, whether it's font or whether it is your logo design, you will tend to find that those brands look more modern and they don't date as quick as something that's hard-edged or hard-coloured. So even with Access, the logo was originally a very sharp pointed triangle. It's now been redesigned to be more cursive with a more triangular elongated look to it, which then makes it look more modern. So there are reasons why you do the things that you do. Like that evolution there happened over a 2-year period. It doesn't confuse anybody though, because the color has stayed the same, the shape has stayed the same, and the formatting has stayed the same. So you can change your brand without fully confusing your audience. If you love your colors and you have a strategy that's connected to the colors, but if you keep things consistent, very rarely will people go, oh, who's that? Because they can see that it's relatively the same. All that has changed is maybe the styling or the shape. But the colors are still there and the story's still there and the meaning behind what you've created is still there.
Right. It was more like a refresh than a complete change. Mhm.
Exactly.
Right.
It needed a refresh. I wanted it to be
Mhm.
more modern and attract a more, people that are going in that headspace of got to do it now, fast movers. I've found that a lot of the market we're attracting now is from Dubai. Even though we're based in Australia, we're finding that a lot of our clients are from the UAE market because a lot of tech startups are moving to UAE and they're starting up and they
Mhm.
want to do different things in different industries. And because we've worked with a lot of industries, they come to us and go, oh, you guys know how to do this. So
Mhm.
we'll work with you. So it's interesting, but I find that they appeal to our brand more because of the feel of it and the story. So yeah, that's
Mhm.
kind of where your
Perfect.
rebrand and your refresh comes from.
Great. Well, I know we're running short on time, so I would love to ask if you have an offer that you would like to share with the listeners and how they can connect with you if they want more information.
Absolutely. So again, we spoke very briefly on authenticity, and obviously I could go on for hours on that particular topic. And it's really important to understand that when you start a business, having someone to help you with a strategy or at least to sanity check your ideas with is something that you can do. And we do that at Access for free. It's a 20, 30-minute consultation call. You can literally book a call in your time zone. We'll pick the call up. Most of the time it'll be me, if not me, one of my business partners. But I like to get my hands dirty on all strategies and help businesses of all sizes and different industries. So if you're stuck with, I like this, but is it the right way? And you just want someone to sanity check something and put you back on the right direction, reach out to us at accessglobal.co and you can pop an inquiry through. And even myself and my partner will get back to you and we can organize a call to go through that together. Or if you're in the, again, left of field side of things, we do have multiple industries we work with. If you're listening to this podcast and you're in the adult entertainment arena, then potentially go and have a look at sweetrelease.agency. It is a PR firm and marketing firm, so check out that one. If you want to connect with me one-on-one because you don't want to go through a company and you'd rather just talk to me directly, feel free. You can go to braedenrhys.com and you'll be able to message me directly on there. My secretary does filter all the emails out and picks the best ones, but I do see them all anyway. So if you want to reach me directly and have a chat, you can message me yourself rather than going through the agencies. You can always come to me. Always happy to have a chat and to sanity check something and see what movers and shakers are out there that you want to do with your business. I'm always excited to see someone create something new or challenge what's out there. Most of the time, the businesses that come to us and the ones I love helping the most are the ones that have seen something, found a gap, and want to change the story. Or it may be a business that has never existed before, but they've identified a problem that no one's addressed. And it's like,
Mhm.
how come no one has had that thought process yet? So I get really excited when I see businesses like that come forward. So don't be shy, say hi, or if you need help with more extensive marketing and advertising, definitely head to Access Global and we can put something together for you. But definitely don't feel like you've got to fork out money for us. We're more than happy just to put you on the right path with a free chat and give you some recommendations. And if you want to work with us, great. If you don't and you want to do it yourself, perfect. But as long as we're part of that journey, we're happy to help.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Braeden, for being a guest on my show and coming on to share your thoughts on this topic and the branding and helping business entrepreneurs really understand the difference of them figuring out what the market really would like to see versus what they think they need to see,
Yeah.
and sometimes that little battle. So I appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. Hopefully we've helped a few businesses today navigate, what's in your head versus what will work in reality, because that's always a challenge. I know I had that challenge at the start. And sometimes you've got to battle that demon head on and go, you know what, I've got to get out of my head and I've got to get it on paper. And that makes it a lot easier moving forward, especially as a startup.
Thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. I hope you found this topic interesting and enjoyed the informative discussion. Would you please share my show with those you know and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform? I'd really appreciate your support. If you have any additional questions or comments, be sure to reach out to my guest at any of the links that they shared, or you could send me a message at media@abandp.com. I hope you can join me for my next interview. And remember, you can connect with me on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And my website is abandp.com. This episode is sponsored by Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services. If you are overwhelmed trying to handle the financial aspects of your business, AB&P is here to help. Contact us today to discuss your needs at 310-534-5577 or contact@abandp.com. My team and I are eager to assist you. Until next time, have a great day.
Thank you for listening to Biz Help for You. Please join your host, Candy Messer, again next time. Have a terrific day.